So the way I describe editing is as a bit of a spectrum. So you start with the very zoomed out end, and you've got everything in between until you get like the nitty gritty end, which is proofreading. So on the very wide zoomed out end, you're looking at overall ideas and structure. So you can deal with that in a number of ways. You don't have to deal with it with a developmental editor. You can deal with it with beta readers. You can deal with it with a writing coach. You can even deal with it if you just have a really strong structure in place for, say, a course that you teach, and you want the book to mirror that course because it's a lead into it. So perhaps you're explaining your signature system, or you are telling your part of your story in a memoir. Like, there are some things that have to go in a certain order just for it to make sense. So developmental editing is all about the big ideas. The next stage down is what I call content editing. Some people tie this in with developmental or structural, and this is really about clarity, ideas that are like testing the integrity of ideas, making sure that they're consistent and there's no gaps or repetition or anything that doesn't make sense. It's a sense check, essentially. So that's the first thing that your editor will do if you have got all of the big pieces in place. The next stage down again is looking at the language. So this is what some people call line editing or copy editing. There is a bit of a distinction, but they overlap so much that we'll just call this language. So connects with your readership, how engaging it is, the word order, how succinct you've written something, whether you've waffled on for ages when you could just say it in a very neat sentence, or perhaps it's using the right level of language, because we don't speak to different people in the same way. So there's a little bit of that. Of course, use your own voice, but also bear in mind who is that receiver. Bear in mind who that person will be who's reading, and we kind of like make sure that it's said in the most succinct way, in the most powerful way. That's what line editing or copy editing is. And then narrower again, we're looking at like grammar, which gets very black and white towards the pointy end. So proofreading is looking at spelling, punctuation, grammar. You've probably dealt with sentence order and word order and syntax and kind of like bigger grammatical restructures in the copy editing. So proofreading is really like the nitty gritty. If there's a black and white mistake, it gets changed, but if not, it gets left, or it may get queried. But at this stage, we're really we're pretty much there, you know, it's pretty much towards the end. So that's how I characterize editing. It's like this wide kind of zoomed out kind of view, right down to the word for word accuracy. Kind of accuracy is probably what characterizes that proofreading part.